to throw back to one of my favorite phrases in restaurant training is at the end of a good pre-shift meeting, going into dinner service or going into lunch service, I had one boss who would always say, we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And if we treat everybody with that as the starting point, then we're going to make money and we're going to have a good shift. So what's going on, YouTube? Brian coming at you from Perfect Gentleman Podcast here, episode 3 of our quick introduction series. This one I kind of wanted to touch on maybe why you should trust me in the first place. You know, you're going to be spending a lot of time watching content creators on YouTube, and you should, take a listen and give our channel a shot. So I wanted to make sure that I kept it as clear and concise as possible as I could for my viewers who were going to come along with this channel, and I kind of wanted to leave a couple of intro videos that were possibly, evergreen, just kind of explain kind of where we got started from. So that's kind of what I hope to finish off with this video. So number one, why should you listen to us? Well, we're only going to be telling you about things and, going behind the scenes of things that we're actually doing. So when it comes to working on the house, you're going to see my very amateur self and hopefully some good professionals that I'll hire that are going to be helping me finish off the renovations around the house and get this old historic bungalow in South City finished up. Got a lot of different projects that we're going to be working on over the next couple of years, so the transformation progress should be fun to watch. We're going to be talking about the things that I'm doing to work on myself. What am I doing to better myself? I've got some journaling practices, I've got some daily habits, I've got some monthly habits, I've got some yearly things that I do every year, and we're going to kind of go through some of those things just because those are things that people like to watch on YouTube. Those are things that people are interested in. So hopefully fresh perspective and a fresh voice. We will kind of go through those things as they come up throughout the calendar, but that's not going to be something that we're going to focus too much on as far as like the daily routine type videos. I've figured out what works for me, and I am confident in what I'm talking about. I am getting back to the point to where I finally got it dialed in enough to where I would feel confident if somebody asked me what I do, sharing it. So I know that obviously everybody likes to watch the get ready with me and the vlog style of behind the scenes of different things that they do on a daily routine, whether it's your morning routine, your nightly routine. Girls love makeup routines and skincare routines. Guys love getting different toys that are associated with all of our other hobbies, whether it's, guns, the skill set that goes along with being handy with and carrying guns and tech, EDC gear, cars, back into golf. And the hobbies get more expensive, and there's obviously levels to these things, but we're going to start showing you guys my full watch collection and any big stories that I see that come up in the watch YouTube world that are worth either parroting or shedding more light on, or as I grow my collection, we'll be talking more about watches. Today on the wrist, I've got my Tissot PRX chronograph. I absolutely love this watch, love how it kind of plays with the light on the wrist. So integrated bracelets are always fun. Shout out to Rolex for their new Land Dweller that is making a big splash this year in 2025 after Watches and Wonders. And then obviously any businesses that we promote on here or anything that we do to try to make any sort of a financial gain from, obviously we're going to tell you guys about it and be completely open and honest. So as we grow that side of things, if that side of things grows, then we'll be upfront and transparent with it. So why am I somebody that you should listen to outside of just being an upfront and honest guy? I've kind of wanted to touch on motivational content, and I've watched enough of over the past decade. There's been a ton of TED Talks and a ton of different conferences that you could plug into on YouTube and watch the content that was recorded there, so you didn't have to necessarily be there to catch up on anything that was going on. So and like I've mentioned in my first video, I've spent a lot of time around the self-help world, and I've gone through a pretty big transformation over the past couple of years, and I've finally started to get back to the point to where for me, it's more of a following through on something that I told myself I would do a long time ago. And so I always wanted to be adjacent to that, but I always wanted to have businesses that performed that were actually worth talking about. So hopefully to go to coincide with that, we're authentically growing something and it's worth watching, and so therefore the content will speak for itself. That's the goal, obviously, but really the YouTube thing, we're going to be treating it like a business because it could turn into that, but in all reality, knowing that there's a real chance that this just is a very fun hobby for me, and this is just something that I do on the side for my own perspective. I should say I'm starting this YouTube channel because I really want to start something that I'm consistent with, that I hold myself accountable to, that is something that is creative, something that lets me get my thoughts out there. And, you know, for somebody like myself who is more focused on, what am I even trying to say here? When you can't put your finger on what you want to do next, and then you don't jump into whatever that initial thought is so that you get moving on it and you get moving and get the ball rolling a little bit, you get stuck in inaction. You get stuck in a state of, should I do this? Should I do that? Is this the right time? And then next thing you know, you look up 2 years later and 9 Mile Garden in St. Louis opens, and you had the idea for a food truck park in your head at a different location 5 years prior to that, but you never moved on it, and then you had to watch somebody else in your hometown do it successfully and keep that business open for an extensive period of time. Do I feel great about that? No. Do they get all the credit for doing it when I sat on the sidelines? Yes, absolutely. But either way, when you've had a couple of ideas in the back of your head and you don't pull the trigger on them for long enough, you just get stuck in this perpetual state of inaction, and that's kind of where I was for the last year and a half, quote unquote, practicing making content. And I was practicing, I was doing what I thought was the right thing. But in reality, I'm not actually making content with the thought of making content ahead of time. I was just kind of posting and taking pictures when it was convenient, not when it was planned, and I was doing things without any intent. And so starting this channel, the intent is to post weekly on a schedule on Mondays, so that by 8 p.m. on Monday, the video is uploaded. We'll try to post earlier in the day, obviously, but the goal is by Monday night when you're getting home from work and you're getting ready to settle down, if you're looking for something to just chill and watch, maybe you can watch my channel, hopefully. That's kind of the goal. But I've watched enough content for long enough from other creators that all of them eventually say that don't just sit at home and watch YouTube or listen to podcasts or do any of that stuff. If there's actionable things that you can do to go improve your life, whether that's hanging out with your friends and family, whether that's spending time in a quiet place reading, they all have some version of a story that they had to just rip the Band-Aid off and take it serious and get moving. And all of the content creators that I follow that say that are all people who are successful on YouTube. I'm not talking about the guys who just have a handful of videos that are posting inconsistently. These are guys and girls that are posting consistently week in, week out for years on end. And that's kind of what, in this video, I'm signing up to do. So with that being said, obviously the channel being titled The Perfect Gentleman, we're going to be focusing on a lot of male-centered hobbies or a bunch of dude stuff, whatever phrase you want to put on that. But the brand and the conversations and everything that we're going to be doing is going to be focused around more of that type of content. We're going to continue going behind the scenes of the work that I'm doing with my buddy Will on his channel and all of the fun training with firearms that we're going to be doing around that. I'm hopefully going to get my concealed carry permit here soon, get a new EDC gun, and as I build my gun collection out, we'll obviously talk about that. But, you know, as far as the YouTube channel goes, this is something that is part born out of watching enough content that, like, you get to the bottom of the YouTube rabbit hole and it's like you no longer find the content that's serving you. So the best content creators I've always watched were people who would say, make the content that you want to see. So that's hopefully, you know, what we're going to try to do here is make the content that I would like to see on YouTube. But I also want to be clear about what this is not. I want to make sure that people know that this is not going to be a channel that we're going to try to pill people. So there's no black pill, there's no red pill, there's no blue pill, manosphere crap content that's out there. And there's a handful of guys who do that really well. There's a handful of people who are okay, and then there's a lot of people who do that type of content that it's just a bunch of people who shouldn't really have a microphone in the real world. And you can think that I'm one of those people, and that's totally fine, but we'll see. For right now, we're operating under the premise of everybody wants to live a semi-normal life and be respected by the people around them and respect the people around them. And so with that being said, this isn't here for dunk culture. Yes, we're going to do some reactionary stuff, but it's not with the intent of dunking on anybody or humiliating or highlighting other people dunking on other people. If anything, we're going to try to shut that down as much as we can. One of the phrases from my restaurant career that I loved was, in service, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And if we treat our guests with that in mind, we will make money and have a good shift. That's coming from an elevated restaurant. That's not coming from a dive bar. That's not coming from your average Chili's or Applebee's. I've worked in plenty of restaurants that don't talk like that. But I've also worked in plenty of restaurants that do. And I can promise you there's a massive difference in how service goes at restaurants that talk about it versus those who don't. So with that being said, we're going to be what I call Midwest mannered. The goal ultimately with The Perfect Gentleman is to create a content lane that is something that everybody can watch, something that any guy or any girl who's interested in guy-related content, and I think it's important that content creators with fresh perspectives join in the fold when they feel like they have something of value to add. I don't feel like there's a content lane for everybody, but I do feel like if you have an interesting perspective, there's never been a better time to at least try. And one of my favorite quotes of all time comes from A$AP Rocky. He was on an interview, and he said just very bluntly, "Since when was it not cool to try?" And that was one of my favorite quotes that I've ever heard on any internet clip or anything like that. And he was just so sincere and so serious about it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to give this thing a real try. I think the first video that's going to come up is we're going to start with the watch collection, and then we're going to move into the rest of the side hustles and kind of the introduction to that sort of topic. Now, moving forward, we'll start with different series of videos to get into the addiction series. And so we'll start working on that content here in the next week or so. And hopefully we'll be ready to post all 8 episodes of that. And hopefully we'll get all that out in batches so that all that can be done and up and on the channel for perpetuity moving forward. But we're hoping that all that content will be done in the next couple of weeks. So with that being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, whatever you are doing. I am out for the week, and I hope you guys have a great one. We'll see you soon. Cameras and photography were something my grandfather was passionate about, and so this is what that hobby lends itself to in our day and age. The YouTube side of things is the creative outlet of, I have too much time on my hands, so we're going to give it a shot, and we're going to give it a real shot, meaning that this is going to be something that we're going to be doing for a couple of years, posting consistently, and the goal is to really give this the 10,000 repetition, 10,000 hour try.